Alright, this is week number 10. It's the week after spring break, and I was gone on Monday and part of Tuesday. Okay? So, let's take a look at OS 2. Okay, this is still the first page of the week. This is some work done by the Monday. Alright, here was Tuesday. This is the work these classes did in the afternoon. Linux, classwork 5, managing users. Should be near having that completed. Okay, so I got back approximately 2, so I was around for the end of the class. The students continued to work on this particular work. We had a tech den on Friday, did some work on the attendance program, did a little Python work there, and then Riley Dirksen did some work on game design. Talked about some of the complexities and how to get started, and some things they went over, some things in Unreal Engine. And we have it installed in the room on 6 different computers if you ever want to come in and work on it when we don't have, when you wouldn't disrupt classes, more or less when the machines aren't being used. Next couple weeks, we're going to take next week off, so there will be none on April 6th, so April 13th or whatever. We're going to either, we're going to do some wiring, some Raspberry Pis coming up, and so forth, so you'll just have to watch for announcements. We discussed client server. Talked about services, a little bit about sockets, and we answered some questions on backup. Okay, client server. So, client, end user, or device. Okay, there are all kinds of devices in which we gather services from servers. Okay. Apache web server, we talked about that. That would be HTTP, HTML. You go out to a website and you grab information that brings back to your browser, and your browser organizes it based on that HTML, and then you have a client and a server scenario. So in order for that to work on the server, it has to be running some type of services. So services would be HTTP, hypertransfer protocol. Okay? So you have to have those services running on your machine. Okay. We talked about SSH in the machine also. You get a client communicating with a server. That makes sense. Then we went into a little bit here of these. We talked about MySQL, PHP, Perl, and Apache. It's referred to as a stack. There are a lot of places. There's actual schools that just teach particular stacks. So this is an example. And this is the reason we mention this is the next step in some of the things we're going to do when we start installing Apache and MySQL. And we can install these. We can do all that at once through the stack. Alright. One other thing I should mention, these services, they've got to be running on the server, and in some cases a client has to use some special type of software to access the services. One of my favorite things, OSI model. So we have some software here running that will allow us to communicate via a network to something here. So it could be a browser accessing a web server sending the information back to the browser. Okay. This prepares the data like this would do encryption. So you can think of the browser sends the data down. This is the link into the browser. The browser sends a URL down. Does it need to be encrypted, the information? We create a session. If it's accessing a web server, that would be a TCP. It's going to access and make sure it gets information returned. So we figure out how we're going to transport that data, split the data into a segment. It's going to be UDP or TCP. Figure out a port, tie that port to an IP, and we can create one form of a socket. Then, we'll talk about why that's important here in a second. Then the network's going to figure out the path based on an IP address. Here we create a packet. So we take, let me just show this. Let's say the segment's in red. So we have a segment here with all of this information in it. Then we create a packet. A packet takes the segment and encapsulates it. And now we have IP addressing. And then we take the data link, we create a frame, and if you're using Ethernet or Wi-Fi, somewhere here then you have media access control addressing. And then put it on a physical medium, either wire, fiber, or wireless. And we send it to the other end, then the other end sends it back up the hierarchy. Takes it off the wire, gets rid of the MAC, IP address, gets it to the right location, and then it hits a socket, which aligns it to the right app. Okay? Port and IP. So, what's important about that is, let me use another color here. You can have a browser going out to the internet, and then you can create another set of traffic, let's say a FTP program that's downloading something, or maybe you're checking your mail, and all those would set up a separate port number to manage those, so when the information comes back, it goes to the right application. I'm being pretty general about that. That makes sense? Being pretty general, but this way we can manage multiple traffic inside our one device, or our server can manage multiple traffic coming in and out of it. That is it for this week.